Hello and good morning, everybody. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I'm just waiting for some people to come in. But hello and good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Okay, I guess that's enough people. Good morning, Venancio and Donald Greenwood. Good morning to you. And I was going to wait for a couple of people to come in, but as I stated yesterday, I'm not on Facebook for views. I'm not looking for views. I'm just looking for those that are interested. So, those of you that are joining me now, good morning. Happy Monday to you. I hope you had a great weekend. Good morning to you, Warren. Good morning, Donald, again. Good morning, Venencio. I'm sorry. Good morning to you as well. As I stated, I'm not here for views. I am here for those that are interested in what I have to say. And I do have some things to say. This morning, I have decided to start my 6-part series on surviving diabetes. Yes, surviving diabetes. Um, as you guys know, those of you that follow me, that I have type 2 diabetes. I was diagnosed back in 2000, was it two? It was 2003. I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. It was really something that was devastating to me. It was a very pivotal time in my life. So many things had transpired, both good and both very tragic. And I, um, if you have any questions for me after I do this live, please feel free to inbox me. I'm asking you for the questions that you want answered. Anything that I may not answer in this series, please feel free to send me your questions as to what you need to know about type 2 diabetes, what you need to know about type 1 diabetes, what you need to know about anything when it comes to diabetes. I am more than happy to either try to answer that question for you, or I will try to get that question answered for you. I hopefully will be able to bring in some professionals so that they may be able to discuss some things in terms of the health side of diabetes, and I will be giving you my personal intake on what I experience on a day-to-day basis and what I have experienced as a result of being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Today I'm going to cover um, a couple of things. First, I'm going to tell you the story of how I came upon finding out that I was diabetic. It was, like I said, a very, very pivotal time in my life. My nephew had just been killed at 14 years old, and I was very afraid because of the situation um, of him getting killed. And that prompted me to step back from a lot of things, friends, family, being outside. I actually moved out of state. I moved from the state of New Jersey to the state of Tennessee, and just totally just cut myself off from everything that I knew. I cut myself off from everything, all friends, family, just about with the exception of my immediate family. And I was in a new relationship at the time, and him and I, we had just purchased a home in Tennessee, And I um, was we it was very very hot in Tennessee. I remember when we moved. We moved in August, and it was very very hot. And so in doing so, we had taken all of our things and moved them from Jersey to Tennessee. And in doing so, you know, we had moving people that moved some of our things in, and then we had to move some things in ourselves. And so at this particular time, as I was moving things into this new home that we had purchased, I I started to feel very very tired and lethargic, and I was very very thirsty. Me thinking that, you know, it's just because of the change in climate, because of course it's much hotter in Tennessee than it is in New Jersey. Me thinking that, you know, the change of climate was causing me to be so hot and so lethargic and so thirsty, I paid absolutely no mind for it, and it continued on for about a month. So one day I was in the house. We had moved in and got settled and everything, and I was in the house, and I was just very very tired, and again I was very thirsty, and I started to have these sweats, these night sweats and things. And so I something told me, something just clicked in my head and said, you know, Trammell, you really need to go and get your sugar checked. Because my mom always told me, you know, that, you know, make sure that you check your sugar, because I come from a long line of diabetics. My dad was diabetic, my grandfather was diabetic, my uncle was diabetic, my aunt was diabetic. This is all my bloodline. My sister was diabetic. Just about every person, elder person in my family that I know, had been diabetic. Some had even lost limbs. Some had kidney issues, so on and so forth. But I always thought, you know, because of my my age, number one, and I thought because I was in such good health, because I was a health nut at the time. I used to exercise all the time. I used to diet. The only thing that I really, really had a kind of an addiction to was Pepsi. I wasn't really that type of person that ate a whole lot of things like cakes and cookies and things like that. So thought nothing of it. But anyway, going back to the story, I something told me, get your sugar checked. And the person that I was with at the time, his mom, she was diabetic. And so we went over to her house, and she lived like right around the corner from us, so it wasn't far away. So we went over to her house, and I asked her, I said, could you check my sugar? Because I've just been feeling very tired and lethargic and very thirsty. I went through, I kid you not, I went through a 12 pack of Dr. Pepper in less than 4 hours, just drinking them one after the other because that's how thirsty I was. And she checked my sugar. And when she checked my sugar, she said, you better get to the emergency room. I said, get to the emergency room. And she says, yes. She says, you need to get to the emergency room now. And I said, well, why? And she said, well, because my meter is not reading whatever your blood sugar is. And usually when someone's diabetic testing meter does not read what your blood sugar is, it just says high, and that's it. That means that your sugar is 500 or over. I didn't know this at the time, but okay, I went to the emergency room. So I went to the emergency room, and I told them of my experience of being lethargic and tired and thirsty. And I told them that my friend's mom had checked my sugar, and she said that her meter wasn't reading. So they immediately, the first thing they did was they got their own meter out and they tested my sugar. Now, I've always been told that the diabetic testing meters in the hospital are totally different from the meters that I own, that we out here own. So they checked my blood sugar, and the nurse looked at me, and she looked at the meter, and she says, I'm going to check it again. So I said, okay, maybe something's wrong with the meter or something like that. I really didn't know too much about diabetic testing meters at the time. But she said maybe, I said maybe something's wrong with the meter. So she checked my sugar again. And she looked at me and she looked at the meter. And then she looked at me again. And then she looked at the meter. And all this time I'm just sitting there and I'm just as bright eyed and bushy tailed. And, although I was a little, thirsty, I was really not feeling, I was feeling okay. So she goes back to the back and she gets someone. And it's a nurse practitioner. The nurse practitioner says to me, Mr. McCray, are you okay? How do you feel? And I said, well, I feel fine. I said, I feel fine. I said, with the exception, I said, I'm really thirsty. Could you guys get me some water with some ice? And mind you, I used to like water, but I never liked water with ice in it. But I wanted some ice water. I just had this craving for ice water. And so, they got me the ice water and they said, well, Mr. McCray, we're going to need to put IV in your arm. And I was like, okay. And so what they did was they put me in a little separate room and they put an IV in and I sat there and I was still very, very thirsty. They kept on just bringing me water because I kept on complaining of being thirsty. But I was feeling fine. Other than that, I was feeling fine. And so finally the doctor comes in and the doctor says, Mr. McCray, are you feeling okay? And I said, why does everyone keep on asking me that? Why does everyone keep on asking me, am I feeling okay? I feel fine. And the doctor said to me, well, Mr. McCray, we tested your blood sugar 3 times. And 3 times our meter wouldn't read. And I said, okay, well, there's something wrong with the meter. And they were like, no, there's nothing wrong with the meter. We checked the meter out. We calibrated it. We calibrated it again. There's nothing wrong with the meter, but your blood sugar is not reading. We don't know what your blood sugar is. The only thing that we know is that your blood sugar is above 500. Because whenever you test your blood sugar, if the meter doesn't read and it says high, again, the words HI, that means that your blood sugar is 500 or up. And they said to me, well, Mr. McCray, you should be in a coma. I said, a what? You should be comatose right now. I said, why? Well, because usually when people's blood sugar is above 500 or above, that's like danger. That's like a red signal. That's like, you're either in a coma or you die. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep you here under observation until we can get your blood sugar down. So they did a series of things and they got my blood sugar regulated finally and determined, the doctor diagnosed me right there with diabetes. He said, Mr. McCray, you have type 2 diabetes. My suggestion to you is to find a primary care physician that would be able to help you manage your diabetes. And I was kind of like, yeah, okay, whatever. Really didn't take it too seriously. Because like I said, I just really never thought that I would get diabetes. Because like I said, I was a health nut. I was always in the gym. I was working out. I was lifting weights. I was eating healthy. The only thing that I really did was I drank Pepsi. That was my thing. So that's what I did. So I finally, being that I was new to Tennessee, I didn't have a primary care physician, so I did find a primary care physician, and in doing so, I was under the care of this primary care physician, and fortunate for me, my diabetes was caught early. Unfortunate for me, I was in denial of having said diabetes. And I'm saying this, so I'm telling you this so that you will have an understanding of what I went through being a diabetic in the beginning. When I had my first visit to my primary care physician, they explained to me what diabetes was and some of the do's and don'ts. Very little information. They were only able to give me very, very little information because, of course, this is my primary care physician. They suggested that I take a diabetes education class in order to get a better understanding of what diabetes was, what it entailed, and so on and so forth. But when you get diagnosed with diabetes, you get very, very little information in the beginning as to the severity of it. Because let me tell you this, and you're going to learn this in this 6-part series, what the severity of diabetes is, because it's a life changer. It's definitely a life changer, and it's something that can either make you, break you, give you the will to live, or give you the will to die if you do not do the things that you are supposed to do. So these are some of the things that I'm going to cover in telling you about surviving diabetes. But that's the story of how I found out that I was diabetic. And as I stated, I come from a long line of diabetics. My grandfather, my great-grandfather, my grandmother, both of my grandmothers were diabetic. Just about everybody in my family right now as we speak are diabetic. Fortunately, my sister and my mom, they no longer have diabetes because at the time when they were diagnosed, they were a little bit overweight, were overweight enough to be able to qualify to have gastric surgery. And so now my mom, praise God, she is no longer diabetic. My sister, praise God, she is no longer diabetic as well. But moving on. So you just found out you have diabetes. These are some of the suggestions that I would like to make to you. Good morning, Pastor. These are some of these suggestions that I'd like to make to you if you have just been diagnosed with diabetes. Number one, find a good PCP. Find a good primary care physician. Find a primary care physician. You want to find one that really specializes in diabetes. You may want to talk to an endocrinologist if you feel as though you've been misdiagnosed and you need a second opinion. Then you want to see an endocrinologist. Okay. Also, number two, take a diabetes education class as soon as you possibly can. Because if once you take this diabetes education class, it is going to tell you everything about diabetes. Now, some diabetes education classes you may have to go to several classes. Some they're very, very complex, and they're very detailed. So when you go to diabetes education, you're gonna learn everything that you need to know about what your disease is. They're gonna tell you about your eating habits. It's gonna tell you about your lifestyle. It's gonna tell you about all the different things that you need to be mindful of as a diabetic. I'm going to tell you this, and I'm not going to candy coat it like anybody else is going to do. Diabetes is a lifestyle change. It's a big lifestyle change. I don't care if you're a person that before getting diagnosed, you did not eat a lot of sugar. I don't care if you're whatever walk of life you come from. Diabetes is a lifestyle change. It's a big lifestyle change. And throughout this series, I'm going to be telling you some of the mistakes that I made, some of the things that I chose not to do. And as a result of me choosing not to do those things, I developed what they call a lot of complications from diabetes. So with that being said, I'm going to move on and proceed and tell you again, find you a primary care physician, a good primary care physician. If you need a second opinion, find you a good endocrinologist. Also, you want to take a diabetes education class, and once you complete that class, you're also going to want to see a nutritionist. A nutritionist is going to show you how to eat. Because, like I said, diabetes is a lifestyle change. You are going to have to change everything that you do in terms of getting up in the morning to going to sleep at night. You're going to have to change your eating habits. You're going to have to change your mind. You're going to have to watch your body. You're going to have to monitor every single thing that goes on in your life. Diabetes is more mental than it is physical for some people. For me, it was more mental than anything. You're going to, like I said, it's a lifestyle change. So you're going to go through this. There's going to be good days. There's going to be bad days. You may or may not, depending on where you are in your disease, you may or may not develop complications. And you may just develop complications as a result of having diabetes. That's what diabetes does to you. So, those are the things that you're going to want to do if you've just been diagnosed with diabetes. And if you need for me to send those to you, please, again, feel free to inbox me. Please, any questions that you may have for me that you wish for me to answer in this 6-part series about diabetes, I'm more than happy to cover those for you. I'm more than happy to either give you the answer or find the answer for you. Know this, with diabetes, you're not alone. You're not alone. Diabetes is actually one of the number one killers in the country at this time. And there are some states, it varies where you differ. It differs, it varies. But there's a lot of states where the statistics are a lot higher. But being in one where I live at in the state of New Jersey, the statistics for diabetes is on the rise. And the statistics for juvenile diabetes is on the rise as well. So please be mindful. Please be mindful of that. You hear your doctors talking about eating carbs and watching your carbs and watching your diets. You hear your doctors telling you that you may or may not be borderline diabetic. Please make sure that you take heed to what your doctor says. If your doctor tells you that you are borderline diabetic, please take heed to what your doctor says and do exactly what he tells you to do. If it's more exercise that you need to do, then exercise. If you need to change your eating habits, then change your eating habits. If you need to change the way in which you think about your eating habits or exercise, then you need to change that. Because I'm telling you, I'm here to tell you, I was diagnosed in 2005 with diabetes. And it's been about 15 years that's passed. And my life has never been the same. Never been the same. And you'll find out through this 6-part series all of the things that I had to endure as a result of type 2 diabetes. I don't wish this on anyone. I really don't. I don't want to scare you, but I do want to scare you. Because if you are and you have been diagnosed with diabetes, then you need to know. You need to know the dark side of what you are about to embark on. So this is part 1 of my series on surviving diabetes. And as I stated, I will be doing this every Monday. I will be bringing to you my take on surviving diabetes. And I will tell you some of the do's and don'ts, some of the ins and outs. I will be as honest as I possibly can about any and everything that I have experienced, that I have seen others experience when it comes to diabetes. But I'm doing this simply because I care about you. And I made a lot of mistakes in my maintaining my diabetes. And I would hate for someone to go through and endure what I endured from not listening and not doing what the doctors told me to do. I've lost a lot, but thank God I'm still here, still standing. And today I'm doing very well, very well. And that's all due to the glory of God and me changing my mind on a lot of things. So, with that being said, I'm going to end that subject on on surviving diabetes, and I will talk to you guys very very soon. So this is part one of the 6-part series of surviving diabetes. I am Tremel McCray. I am King Tremel McCray, and I will talk to you soon. Till later, peace. Team McCray, all day.